Hi, I'm Carly Levin with the LegalTech Fund. Welcome back to the LegalTech Briefs podcast. Today, as our guest, we have Hemma Lomax, VP, Deputy General Counsel, and Global Head of Business Integrity at DocuSign. We are going to dig into all of those, all the words of that title, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
So happy to be here with you, Carly. I love the TLTF, so my favorite place.
Excellent. So on the podcast, we usually like to start with career background, and you have had quite the career background, from the English bar to the SEC to Disney to DocuSign. What has each of those steps taught you about where the legal profession is and is going?
Oh, that's a great question. So yes, I've been a lawyer for a long time, but in various different roles, everything from a wig-wearing barrister on my feet in criminal courts in London, to the United Nations and UN diplomacy negotiations, and then, as you said, prosecuting at the SEC, and then in-house in big tech and big entertainment firms. And I will say the one thing that has stuck with me the whole way is legal as a service. That the only reason we got into this profession was to provide a service to others. It reminds me when I used to teach these baby barristers, and they'd get nervous of how they'd be on their feet in court. And I'd be a bit of a velvet sledgehammer. I'd say, you know what, guys? There's a chair next to you, and in that chair, someone's sitting there, and their liberty or their livelihood is at risk. And so, candidly, it's not about you. It isn't about you as a lawyer. It's what you can do to serve. So that's certainly been a thread through every single role. And I know this is really important to Zach at the TLTF. He got into this work thinking about access to legal services. And so, yeah, really, if nothing else, legal as a service. And now, as a compliance officer, compliance as a service. Really think about who we're there to serve, and everything else starts to make sense.
And we're going to get into some of the creative things that you've done, but I really love that, being there to serve, and the person sitting next to you is who matters, not you. What a nice way to say it. So on the compliance front, you've won awards for unlocking deals through compliance. How does compliance become a growth engine rather than a barrier?
Yes, another really important point you bring up, because we're often seen as the office of no, the office of block. I wouldn't be offended if you rolled your eyes when you see compliance coming, and there's a reason for that. It's because we do show up as a police officer and enforcer, and it does feel like we're slowing everything down. And let's face it, legal lawyers have the same reputation. We tend to get in the way sometimes, and that's not just always a perception. So when we think of the office of unlock, we identify ourselves as something different. What are we there for? And especially working in-house, it's crystal clear to me that I've been hired to help unlock responsible growth. So the responsible bit is definitely on me to think about, but certainly not on me to implement. I'm there to facilitate responsible growth at scale. So that means that we really need to look at the business objectives and ask them where they want to go. And that could be, in the most basic sense, global growth. Let's just pick global growth, global sales growth, reasonable expectation from any business. And then how can the compliance function serve, back to the service point, to help people get ease and peace of mind as they navigate global growth? Again, the lawyers are responsible, but it's a complicated situation out there trying to navigate different jurisdictions as a lawyer, as a sales team. And so what we're looking for is trace their objectives. I call it objective-centered risk management. Because any objective is really chasing an opportunity, and the flip side of opportunity is a risk. So all we're doing there is trying to say, let's give you a fully informed choice, decision, useful information as you navigate your opportunities, so that you can feel comfortable that you're doing it the right way. You're not going to fall foul of any roadblocks. There's not going to be any stumbles down the road. So I like to say we help the business get where they want to go swiftly, safely, and strategically. Another transport analogy would be they get to build the plane, fly the plane, decide where the plane's going, but we help them take off, fly, and land safely. And so with that attitude, that then helps you look for opportunities to unlock things that they want to do, oftentimes deals. And you mentioned an award. I won't take any credit for that. My team won that award. I was at Zendesk. I was the head of a team of 60-odd security compliance folk. And what happened is the customer came and asked a question, do you have this certification? It was in a LATAM country, in a different industry that we hadn't worked in there. And the answer was no, we did not have that certification. But my team, wanting to be the office of unlock, decided instead to look at what the substance of the certification was and map it against what we did have and be able to tell the customer, look, We have about 80% of that in substance, even though we haven't got that checkbox. We've got about 8 of it on our roadmap, 8% on the roadmap. And the other 12 we're probably not going to do. But with that fully informed choice, the customer was able to say, well, you know what? That satisfies me. I don't need the certificate. I needed the substance. And that helped unlock not only the deal, but the industry and the region. And so that's why the team was recognized, along with the sales teams, of course, for having a significant impact when it came to that idea of unlocking responsible growth. And that's just one example of how we can reframe how we serve the business and then go with them where they want to go.
Is the biggest way to if you're giving advice to other compliance groups, is the biggest unlock a mindset shift? Is it asking the right questions up front and
you're
coming
very
to it with an open? Okay, great.
Yes, yeah. I'll add on that, Carly. Sorry to interrupt you. The biggest shift is absolutely mindset. It's service, number one, as we started with. It's understanding your role. I like to say, if we come across as the heroes, you must ask compliance before you pass go. We inadvertently position the business as the villain or the insider threat. And that is not helpful. That's why we're seen as a blocker. But if we instead consider the business to be the hero in their own journey, and we're kind of the Dumbledore to the Harry Potter, the guide, as opposed to the hero, it really, that's what you said as a mindset shift. And then to your point, and again, very insightful, that then helps you ask different questions.
I was also envisioning you all as the instructions that they give on the airplane about what to do in an emergency event.
Also true. But we can give people fatigue where they will not look up and watch that presentation.
Yes.
That's true.
I like a Harry Potter analogy better, so you did better. But one thing in doing research that I found really interesting was your view of treating AI agents like digital employees with job descriptions and responsibilities. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so let me unpack that a little bit. So we're doing a bit of an experiment with my team at DocuSign. And let's put agents, the formal term agents, to the side for a second, and let's talk about digital assistants. So we've hired digital assistants as our employees. And what I mean by that is I went to my team, my lean team of 5, and said, hey, guess what, guys? We're doubling the size of the team. And they all looked up with anticipation. No, we've got no new headcount. What we're going to do is each of us are going to name and hire our own digital assistants. This is entirely a metaphor, Carly, but the idea is that they went to their GPT, they gave the prompt to get a new name for this new employee and a new job description. And in order to do it, they entered their own job description. So they can say, look, this is what I do. How can I leverage the available technology, the emerging technology, to help me do what I do? And then let's put that into a list, a job description. So mine is called Otis, Optimizing Technology for Intelligent Systems. Otis has a very interesting job description. There's a lot of things that I would think I'd be doing with technology that I'd have to learn that Otis is going to do from now on. And it's really beautiful, this metaphor, because in one-on-ones now with my team, we have an idea of something we should do. And I say, well, maybe we'll let Otis handle that. Let's see if Otis can help us with that. And it just takes off that cognitive load of, oh, we must use AI and what is it and what tools are available. Suddenly, metaphorically, Otis is going to handle it. And then we're much calmer about getting there. The other thing I had the team do is do a 90-day onboarding plan for their Otis. And I asked them to think about what Otis could be doing while we slept. Again, a mindset shift. It really accelerated our questions, the curiosity about what was possible when we slept and what technology that was available to us could help us accelerate our specific use cases. And again, my job description is different to the head of third-party risk management versus the one of the head of culture versus the head of international regulation. So everyone got to think about it in terms of their own job descriptions. And then the third piece, I'll just finish with this, was then rewrite your own job description. What is it that what can Hemma now do, given that she's found ways to offload some of this to Otis? And that's very similar to what you would do if you hired a deputy. You'd think, gosh, what do I do? What can I now sensibly offload to my deputy? And then what does that free me up to do? And one last piece of that is the supervision piece. Like if you think of it as an employee, it's your job to coach, train, supervise, unlock opportunities for your employee. And it's the same thing. So, for example, if Otis gets something wrong, I don't just walk away and say, gosh, Otis isn't very good at this. I think about how I can update Otis, whether it's new tooling or different prompts, to make sure that we can learn. And that means that we start to become experts in the loop, not humans in the loop, because we start to raise the standards of confidence of our AI use cases, not just dot around trying to learn it all.
Again, that's another excellent example of a mindset shift.
Yeah.
By naming your agent, by making it employee, by thinking about how you can make it better. It's a great mindset shift from AI is overwhelming. What do I do? How do I get started?
Yes, and actually one other thing it does help with that last piece, redoing your own job description, I think it's partially an answer to that fear that we've all got, which is AI is there to replace us. It's really important to think about what we are now able to do given the beautiful technology that's available to us. And it really squarely centers my team on the value that they add. And again, not just humans in the loop. We're not here to babysit the technology, but experts in the loop, where we can give decision useful rubrics to the AI to make those repetitive decisions happen for us so that we can then focus on what that 20% that really does need our expertise. And then to keep learning, like in order to equip Otis with the tooling and the prompts, I need to learn how to equip Otis. So I really love that we are designing the future of legal and compliance in this way, as opposed to being consumers of what's thrown at us. We're saying, what should compliance look like? How can the technology help us? And what can we now do to advance the profession? It's really quite exciting.
Any best practices from your team or any big wins that you would share that we should take home?
Yeah. Oh gosh, a couple of things. Best practices first. Two models I'm going to give you. One is the Spotify product mindset. So Spotify says build, think, tweak, see it adopted. I think it's build, think, see it adopted, tweak. And so we use this product mindset as well when it comes to it. We, not just with AI, but with anything we ship, any policy, any training, we want to think, we want to build, we want to see it adopted, but we have to recognize it's a journey and that building and shipping is not enough. You have to make sure it's in the hearts of the minds of the people. Back to your airplane analogy. Just because you stand there telling me about the life vest doesn't mean anyone's listening. So you've got to make sure that communication lands. And then the tweak bit is so important. Like we are never going to arrive at the perfect culture or the perfect policy. But this root cause analysis, this growth mindset built into the way we do our work is really important. So that's one tip. Product mindset for compliance. The second one I'll say that I really love is called the Three Horizons model by Bill Sharp. And it won't surprise you that I learned about this at a TLTF event. So
I'm smiling.
yes, you should be smiling because I learned about it with Rebecca and Zach and all our peers in the community. And immediately I could see the value. And now we upload the Three Horizons mindset from Bill Sharp into our LMs. And so that every time it's guiding us on how we plan our objectives, our mission, our values, we're simultaneously operating on Horizon 1, 2, and 3. And for those of your listeners that aren't familiar, it's very straightforward. Horizon 1 is business as usual, what we do today. Horizon 3, Bill Sharp would have told you 5 to 15 years out. Now we say 12 to 24 months because it's compressed. But Horizon 3 is the future of compliance or legal tech, whatever you think it should be. And again, TLTF had us actually think about that. And then Horizon 2 bridges the gap. It's the work you can do to bridge from 1 to 2. And there's some things about the way we work today that must remain, but there's some things that have to be disrupted. And in order to get from 1 to 3, there's some work we can do now to bridge. And so the other tip I'll give that I've learned from you all is make sure you're trying to operate on all 3 horizons simultaneously. And practically speaking, what that means is if I ask my team, with the help of their Otis, to develop a 3, 6, 8, 9-month plan, they will be doing some work on all horizons in every one of those quarters.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that really stood out to me from the summit, from the Three Horizons, was that the Horizon 2, you have to experiment. Some of those will get us to Horizon 3, and some of those will prolong Horizon 1 and keep us stuck in the past longer. But we're not sure which is which right now, so you're going to try everything.
And that's the product mindset, this idea that it's not ship it and you failed or ship it and you're done, but constantly iterating. So I love that you bring that up. That's exactly why we put both of those into the model. And you asked about big wins. I mean, you can see that the possibilities are endless, but I will tell you 2 things, if I may, and these are bold. One, my team has accelerated beyond anyone's dreams in terms of their use of AI and the impact they're having with the experimentation. We'll tell you about the wins, You won't hear about the 7 things we decided not to do, but that's part of the iteration, to your point, right? So there's many, many wins. I can go on all day about that, but the win is, again, the mindset and the impact. And the second piece of that, and I said this to my head of HR, because people are genuinely worried about the AI replacing them with layoffs and things. And I said to them, this may be bold, but I'm going to say it. My team is employable anywhere in this environment because of that mindset, that attitude, that willingness to experiment. And so I know I've been inspired by the Legal Tech Fund community, because you are a community of builders and experimenters. And so bringing that entrepreneurial spirit, that product mindset, the 3 horizons framework into our legal and compliance work has been transformative in many, many ways. So that to me is the biggest win, is the way that our team feels, the ease and peace of mind that my team has got, knowing that they're on this journey.
I think that is a wonderful way to think about it. And again, back to mindset and back to AI readiness. They're definitely ready for any other job.
Right.
On the compliance function, you're an expert here. What, for our listeners, rises to the board level when you're reporting to the board of directors? What compliance issues do you think are board level compliance issues? What are below the board and internal? How should companies think about when to bring compliance to the board and when it is not necessary? It's
Yes,
always a hard tension.
it is a hard question. And I think, again, radical empathy and curiosity and compassion as to what the board members are trying to do is, again, the service to the people that we're talking to. And so you may assume that, and I've seen this many times in conversations about how to prepare for the board, that it's really a showcase of everything I've done and a bit of a pat myself on the back. That's not right. Is it there for me to go get more resources? Probably not, right? That's really not the first place you should be asking for resources. What it should be is to give them ease and peace of mind when it comes to their role. So their role is multiple. They are there to help the company get where it wants to go. Back to there's profit to be made, responsible profit. Their governance and compliance responsibilities are the responsible piece. So their goals aren't any different to my goals or the CEO goals, which is let's grow responsibly. They want to know where the vulnerabilities are. So I always ask myself in my risk assessments, where do we want to go? What's the journey? What are the vulnerabilities along the route? And how are we controlling for them, mitigating them? So they want to know the same thing. And they want to know, I suspect, where we're having problems or struggling, whether at a micro level or a systematic level, to either spot those vulnerabilities or control for them. And so I really very much focus on that. What's the journey we're on? Where are the potholes? Where are the speed cameras? And what can we do about them? I want to give them reassurance that we're on it. That's the best story I can give them. But certainly I want to be honest when I need help. And my board are also a room of experts. They see many things. And so I see it more as, how can they help me unlock certain things? What have they seen out there in the industry where other companies are navigating the same thing? And I can get intelligence that helps me go back to my team and say, look, I know we've had struggles with this particular issue or this business unit, but it's not unique to us. Let's, again, experiment with this thing that our peers are trying. So I very much see the board presentation as an opportunity to learn from them, to give them peace of mind that we're not just relying on our own assessment of ourselves. There's, we've got checks and balances and controls to make sure our program and the way that we show up for our employees is tested, verifiable, and working. And then when we see system level errors or system level problems, we are there to be the pattern identifiers, to see that this one investigation over here had it really stemmed over here. And so I've gotten this idea recently that we've got some people, for example, that would be photographed getting President's Club style awards for the way that they've behaved and got the sales. But how do we help them get there safely is really the question. And that's the kind of storytelling I want to say. So I'll end with this. Many board presentations that I've seen are filled with dashboards and metrics. My advice would be make it make sense. What's the story behind the metrics? And if there's no story apart from activity versus impact, you probably want to rethink your engagement with the board.
Yeah. And getting the collective wisdom. How do I use this time to have everyone's key learnings be our key learnings, be the company's key learnings, and share that information back out.
Brilliant. Carly, you make a good point about the time. Oftentimes we get minutes, not hours with the
Yes.
board, right? And so one thing I would say to at least compliance professionals that are listening and legal professionals is you're serving the business. If they are telling the story about how they, Harry Potter, navigated things responsibly as opposed to you telling it, that's gold. Then the story of responsible growth is pervasive throughout the organization. It's not constrained to a 5-minute presentation by the compliance officer because the story is actually being told by every business that the board sees.
That's so aligned with what the TLTF fund has been thinking lately, that legal just keeps pushing out and compliance keeps pushing out into every function, and it should be a foundational layer for every function, not its own isolated category.
100%. And I know we're going to talk about navigation in a second, but just like we let every driver get in their own car and make good decisions, that's what we do for the business. We cannot even, it's not possible for us to be in the car with everyone as they're driving, metaphorically. And therefore, what does the world do when it comes to allowing drivers to get on the road with all the attenuated risks that come with driving? Well, they equip them to make the decisions themselves behind the wheel. And that's what we need to do as in-house legal and compliance professionals and outside counsel, is help navigation at scale. Because the problem is if every compliance, and I laugh about this, every compliance training has a little multiple choice questionnaire and it's 3 silly answers and one that says ask compliance. That's just not, that would be like telling a driver to go to the DMV before they take a left turn. Right? I mean, that's really what we're saying there. And so, yes, there are signposts, but the signposts are not enough. The big Atlas map of policies is not enough. What actually happens on the road is people are trusted to make their own decisions and they have a little bit of help from real-time navigation.
Yeah, you're so right. I worked in financial services for a long time, and those were the responses, and that's got to change. That have to be more self-service and independence.
Right. And back to the horizons. I mean, look, BAU is policies, training, shifts, but we now have this magnificent opportunity to be creators of Horizon 3. And if you're worried about not having a job, it's not because of AI, it's because of irrelevance. It's because we did it wrong. We haven't changed.
Yeah, right now it feels like it'll only accelerate how much you have going on, that AI will enhance everything that you're doing.
That's right. Yeah.
So you are a builder. You are a builder too, as you've said, and you're building something called the Compliance Navigator. Can you tell us about it?
Yes. Oh gosh. Thank you for calling me a builder. The identity and the mindset is important to be the builder. I've not been a builder. I've been a talker for a long, long time, going out on stages saying that we need this, but never actually figuring out how to do it. And again, just credit to the TLTF community for teaching me anyone can cook. Back to the Ratatouille Disney movie, anyone can cook. Between TLTF and things like Lovable or Replit, these vibe coding apps, I've now learned as part of a sprint. I did a LegalQuants Games hackathon 2 weeks ago. I've learned that I could try my hand at building too. So what I've been talking about for years, and I've given you a few hints, is Waze for compliance. So Waze, the GPS navigation system, helps me get where I want to go safely, swiftly, and strategically on the roads. It also does something else which should be interesting to compliance professionals. It allows the drivers to give signals back to Google who owns Waze. So it crowdsources risk intelligence from the road. So if I see an accident, if I see a pothole, I can very quickly, very easily send that information back to Google, and they will then, with their beautiful algorithms, let you, Carly, 500 feet behind me, let you know there's a pothole. What? Now, that's what we need to look for when it comes to compliance intelligence, compliance risk intelligence, an easy system, real-time information flowing one way or the other, and making sure that everybody benefits from the signals on the road. So using the analogy, the metaphor, I asked myself, why aren't we doing this for compliance? Why aren't we serving our employees in the same way? And again, just to remind you of where we are today, most are Horizon 1. Most of us have very detailed policies, many of them in a policy bank. At least they're not paper anymore. But it reminds me of when I started to drive at the age of 17 or so in London. And to get across London, which, as you probably know, is not grids like an American city. It's quite complicated. The only people that know how to get across London back then was the black cab drivers, right? The rest of us were given a friend's address. You're on the other side. Good luck. So I had this very thick Atlas-style map called the A to Z. And I kid you not, Carly, I would open it and it would be on my steering wheel as I'm driving. And that is how I would navigate each turn to get through these windy streets of London across town. Now, is that swift or safe or strategic? But people let me out on the road with that thing on the map. Now, the metaphor is we're still doing that to our employees. We're still giving them this buried atlas as the way to get through international growth. And that's just not good enough. So again, I take inspirations everywhere. I take inspiration from Waze. What can we do to make that more real time? Annual risk assessments and annual training are not helpful. What is helpful is decision useful information that's relevant to my journey, not yours, Carly, mine. I don't care where you're going. I want to know where I'm going. So I don't need to know the rules of Timbuktu if I'm in London, right? My journey, where I want to go, get that information in and out. So what I decided to build was Ways for Compliance. It's called the Compliance Navigator. Very simply, it takes in all of the traditional compliance functions that you can think of, training, communications, risk assessment, and it puts them into one seamless experience. Zach Posner always talks about a gorgeous customer experience, a gorgeous UX. And so I started there. BJ Fogg, Professor BJ Fogg at Stanford, is the gentleman that created the behavior science behind things like Instagram. He says behavior equals motivation, ability, and prompt. So behavior will not happen unless you have those three things. It has to be easy to do. I have to be motivated, and I have to be prompted. So I use that science, put it into the technology so that we can, and it's version 1, only 2 weeks ago, but we can now deliver a Waze-style experience as a service to our clients. We're not there yet, Carly, but I think you can see how powerful that objective is. And whether it's me that builds it or someone else takes the ideas and runs with it, it will really transform the way that we serve our clients as legal and compliance professionals.
Is the intention that it will where will it live? How will it live? Where will it live so that users know to interact with it? How
Yes.
can you meet them where they are?
Yes, the perfect question. That is part of the user experience. And so what we're experimenting with right now is where are our users? Are they in Salesforce? Are they in Slack? Are they in ServiceNow, another tool? And so that's the answer, is it has to just be where they are. The best place for them to be is, for example, everyone's on Google Suite, and where I work, everyone's in Google Suite for whether it's documents, sheets, their GPT. So that little diamond that you see in Google Suites can now get you immediate access to a custom gem. Maybe it belongs there. We were experimenting with that. Slack is another good example, an integration with Slack. And so the question is the right one, Carly. And we don't want to do horses for courses, but I think the most valuable place for it to be is where people already have to be anyway. And so Salesforce makes sense for the sales team. It might be Jira for the product team. It might be something else for the other teams. But as long as we leverage the marketplaces, the app stores, all the different integrations that are available to us entrepreneurs and builders, it shouldn't be difficult to get to them. The worst thing would be to make them have to download a new separate app.
I also have to add, I took BJ Fogg's class at Stanford 20 years ago. And in the class, we made, they're so dated now, videos about user experience and looking at those early websites from 20 years ago and determining what was user friendly, what was not working a long time ago. So
it's brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant. And look, he was ahead of his time. I've got his old book on persuasive technology when computers came out. But what he realized was that it was powerful. His theory is powerful. And his students were leaving his classes and building things like Instagram. I think he also realized that this technology can be used for good and for bad, right? We're seeing some legal cases right now about the impacts of social media. So the impacts of the stickiness, the user friendliness of these things actually makes them addictive, right? And so I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he then created the Peace Innovation Institute at Stanford because he really wanted his technology or his theories to be used for the good at scale. So I really like his work. I really appreciate his journey. It's always true, isn't it, that you build something, it can be abused. And that's another role for us as legal and compliance professionals, to learn how to build and code in the guardrails much, much earlier. And I use this really nice example of moral math. It's a funny story, Carly, so I'm going to tell it. I applied for Oxford University, the Ivy League of the UK, when I was 16. I didn't get in. And I think the reason I didn't get in was because I didn't have a great answer to this question. You're on a track and the brakes are broken and you can only go left or right, and on the left are 2 children and on the right is an old lady, what do you do? That was the question I was asked. Well, no surprise, that question's never left me. And as a compliance professional, I don't want our people to do that kind of moral math. What I want is for us to build in controls much further down the track so they never have to make that choice. That's not so far-fetched. We have Waymos on the road now, autonomous vehicles on the road. Waymo engineers did not let the Waymos do that moral math. They built in controls much, much further down the technology. And so I'm really interested in making sure that we, back to the ease and peace of mind, we don't ask our employees to, in service of the global growth, be in vulnerable situations where they have moral math. I don't want you to have to make very difficult decisions at difficult turns. I want to make it easy. And to do that, we have to learn, aka BJ Fogg, to build the controls in much earlier. Because if we make it too easy on this end, we might run into some difficult roads.
Yeah, you've got a lot of good analogies here. Thank you. That is wonderful. I wanted to close on community building, culture building. You've done so much throughout your career around building communities, improving culture, building advisory boards and industry groups. For young generation listening, what does legacy driven leadership mean to you? What would you recommend that how should they spend their time when it comes to culture and to community building?
Gosh, well, we'll probably use a lot of Disney analogies from my time at Disney. So I've already mentioned ratatouille, which is anyone can cook. So the first element of legacy is mindset, to your point, which is believe you can. Believe you can make a difference. Believe you can be a creator, not just a consumer. And I don't just mean a creator of an app. I mean a creator of a community, a creator of a culture, a creator of connection, so that when somebody does need something, you can be there for them as service. And likewise, they can be there for you. So none of us have arrived where we are without remembering all the people that helped us, right? That helped us, that had a hard conversation, that let me think through a difficult thing. And so create the community, but believe you can do that. Don't wait for it to be served to you on a platter. Be the one that creates that community. That's number one for sure. The second one is about building. And what can you build? You can build conversation. You can build community. You can build culture. And so that can start in your living room couch or on the dinner table. But ask questions, to your point about questions. Ask curious questions. What would it look like if I had no holds barred? What could be better? I have a podcast that you may know called Unless. And I want to reference it because of this reason. It's based on the Dr. Seuss quote, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And so every emotion, every frustration, every insecurity we have is information. And so if you see something in the world that you think is harmful or you're not sure why it's happening, ask yourself and others the question, what should we do about it? What does Horizon 3 look like? And surprise, you'll find people that want to talk to you about it, communities that want to build with you, and you will feel like you are part of the solution. So that's the third piece. And then I guess the only other bit is pay it forward. Really pay it forward. I've been very lucky. I was very nervous when I was first been asked to be on a podcast. Didn't know what to say, but I overrode my survivor brain that was telling me not to do it, and I had a go. And then since I've been asked to host them, it's not because I grew up really good at these things. It's just that I'm trying. I think what legacy for me is, gosh, it's going to sound morbid, but it's knowing that you died trying to do the thing, right? It's not being there. It's knowing that you chose a thing. You whatever was important to you, whatever your emotions were bringing up was important to you. You chose it. You were curious about how it could be different. And then you inched towards a better way, bringing others with you. So the Disney quotes that I wanted to give you beyond anyone could cook are Lion King, remember who you are. And Moana, you know who you are. Which is all the voices in your head and externally will tell you that it's not for you. This is not yours to solve. And I would just invite every listener to know that their legacy is not out of reach, and to go for it.
Thank you so much. It's been so nice talking to you today. I appreciate your time and coming on the podcast and sharing all of your wisdom.
Thank you, Carly. Really enjoyed speaking to you.